When a man exhibits these specific behaviors, it is a definitive sign that you are on his mind from morning until night. However, there is a psychological nuance that most women overlook. A man who is constantly thinking about you isn't always the one who is constantly texting you. In reality, the most undeniable evidence that you are occupying every corner of his mind has very little to do with how often his name appears on your lock screen. This is precisely where the emotional disconnect begins. You find yourself obsessively monitoring your inbox, tracking the minutes between his responses, and questioning if he even spared a thought for you today. All while he is revealing his obsession through signals you aren't even trained to see. Welcome to the massive divide between what we assume proves a man's devotion and what truly does. Here is the unvarnished truth. Society has conditioned us to believe that constant attention is the only synonym for deep affection. We've been told that a lack of texting equals a lack of interest, and that frequent pings are the only measure of genuine care. But a profound connection, the kind that takes up permanent residence in a man's psyche, doesn't always manifest as a steady stream of notifications. Sometimes that intensity is quieter, more submerged. And if you don't recognize the true markers, you will miss the depth of his feelings entirely. This isn't about providing an alibi for men who are lazy or indifferent. This is about providing you with the psychological tools to distinguish between a man who is merely passing the time and a man who is genuinely haunted by your presence. Because yes, effort matters, consistency matters. But there are also men who are disciplined, busy, emotionally guarded, or simply not the type to be glued to their phone. And they can still be thinking about you constantly. So, if you're judging his interest only by how fast he replies, you might be reading the wrong scoreboard. Today we're breaking down the exact behaviors, the subtle patterns, the small but powerful actions that reveal when a man is genuinely consumed by thoughts of you. Not surface-level attraction, not just physical desire, but the kind of mental and emotional presence that means you've taken up permanent resonance in his mind. If you've ever wondered whether you're actually on his mind, or if you're overanalyzing every little interaction, if you felt confused by mixed signals or curious about what truly goes on in a man's head when he's falling for someone, this is going to shift everything. Let's get honest. Let's get real. And let's decode what it actually looks like when a man thinks about you all day. Because the signs are there. You just need to know where to look. Let's begin. You know that feeling when you're not sure if someone's really into you or just being friendly. When you can't tell if you matter to him or if you're just another person in his context. Here's what most people won't admit. A man's interest isn't measured by his words. It's measured by where his attention goes when he's not even trying. Because attention is honest. Attention is automatic. It drifts to what matters. It returns to what feels meaningful. And real attention leaves clues everywhere. When a man thinks about you all day, his behavior shifts in ways that aren't always obvious, but they are consistent. It's not always grand romantic gestures or constant declarations. It's the small, almost unconscious things he does, because you're occupying space in his mental and emotional world. And that's where most women get it wrong. They look for noise. They look for constant contact, constant chasing, constant reassurance. But a man can be loud and still be empty. He can text you all day and still not be invested. He can give you attention like entertainment and not like intention. So let's separate casual interest from genuine preoccupation. A man can be attracted to you and not think about you all day. He can enjoy your company and still forget about you the moment you're gone. He can like how you look, like how you make him feel in the moment, and still not carry you into his day. That's the difference. And if you don't know how to spot that difference, you'll waste time wondering where you stand with someone who already told you through his actions. You're just not paying attention to the right actions. Now, let's talk about what's happening in his mind when you actually impact him. When a man meets a woman who genuinely hits something deep in him, something shifts internally. It's not just attraction. It's imprinting. It's like you become a reference point, not because he decided to, but because his emotional system recognizes something in you that feels rare. And whether he understands it or not, he starts returning to that feeling in his head throughout the day. He's at work, and something reminds him of you. He's driving, and his mind drifts to the way you looked when you laughed. He's talking with friends, and he hears a topic that makes him wonder what you'd say. He's scrolling, and he sees something that matches your vibe, and he pauses, because you've become part of the way he filters experiences. That's not him forcing it. That's you living there. And here's the part that's deeper than most people realize. When someone is genuinely on your mind, you don't only think about them when you're bored. You think about them when you're full. You think about them when you're moving through life, because they've become emotionally linked to your sense of meaning. Carl Jung put it like this: where your fear is, there is your task. And in love, a man's task is often vulnerability. If you're on his mind all day, it can be because you've touched the part of him that wants closeness and also fears it. So sometimes he'll be quiet, not because he doesn't care, but because he's trying to manage how much he cares. That doesn't excuse inconsistency, but it explains why some men don't express interest in the obvious ways. When a man is truly thinking about you all day, he starts integrating you into his world without even realizing it. He makes decisions with you in mind. He starts thinking in we language internally before he ever says it out loud. He becomes more intentional, more aware of himself, more aware of what he wants to offer you, more aware of what he might lose if he fumbles you. And this is where the real signs show up. Not in the number of messages, in the shape of his behavior. Because a man who is mentally and emotionally preoccupied by you will behave like you matter, even when he's not performing. He'll notice you. Not just your appearance, but your patterns. He'll remember what changes your mood. He'll sense when you're off. He'll adjust how he speaks to you based on what he knows about you. And he'll do it naturally, without making a speech about it, because his mind has been paying attention. He'll become more careful with you, in a subtle way. Not careful like walking on eggshells. Careful like protecting something valuable. He won't always say, "I'm afraid to lose you." But you'll see it in the way he shows up, the way he checks himself, the way he corrects his tone, the way he follows up after a moment of tension instead of disappearing. And you'll feel it, because casual interest feels uncertain. It feels inconsistent. It feels like you're trying to read smoke. But genuine mental presence feels different. It doesn't always feel loud, but it feels anchored. It feels like there's a thread between you even when you're not talking. Now, I want you to understand something that will save you a lot of confusion. A man who is only casually interested will engage when it's convenient and detach when it's not. His attention is scattered. You might hear from him, but there's no depth behind it. You might spend time together, but it doesn't translate into him actively thinking about you when you're apart. The connection stays surface level because in his mind, it hasn't gone any deeper. But when a man is truly thinking about you all day, he carries you with him, and that changes the way he moves. He doesn't just enjoy you, he references you. He doesn't just talk to you, he reflects on you. He doesn't just feel attraction, he feels impact. And impact creates consistency. Not perfection, not constant texting, but consistent intention. So, if you're tired of wondering whether you're just another option, or if you're actually someone he can't stop thinking about, stop focusing on what he says and start noticing what he does. Because real mental and emotional investment doesn't take convincing, it takes connection. And the men who feel it don't need to be reminded to show it. They already are. You just need to recognize it. Now, let's get specific, because in a second, you're going to start noticing things you used to ignore. You're going to realize that the proof isn't always in his words. It's in the patterns. It's in the details. It's in the way he moves when no one is watching. And once you see these signs, you won't be able to unsee them. The first major sign is this. He remembers the small things you said weeks ago. Not just the big stuff like your birthday or your job title, but the little things. That comment you made in passing about your favorite childhood snack. The story you told about something your sibling did. The random detail you mentioned that most people would forget 5 minutes later. When a man thinks about you constantly, those details stick because he's genuinely paying attention. He's not just hearing you, he's storing you. Because learning who you are matters to him. And what makes this so powerful is that he doesn't bring those details up in a "look how good I am" way. He brings them up naturally, casually, like it's obvious. Like of course he remembers. Like of course he knows. He'll reference something you barely remember saying, and you'll pause and think, wait, you remembered that? Yes. Because when someone is on your mind all day, everything they say becomes more significant. Your brain flags it as important. Not because he's trying to impress you, but because he can't help it. You are not background noise in his life. You're a focus. And you can tell the difference between a man who's remembering you and a man who's remembering facts. One feels warm, personal, specific. The other feels like he memorized a checklist. When you feel like he knows you, not just information about you, that's when you're seeing real mental presence. The second sign is this. He finds reasons to reach out that have nothing to do with making plans. He's not only texting to set up a date. He's not only calling when he needs something. He's not only showing up when it's convenient. He'll send you something that reminded him of you. A song, a meme, an article, a random thought. A picture of something small that made him smile. And these moments matter because they reveal what his mind does when he's living his life. He's walking through his day and something triggers you. He sees something funny, and his first thought is, she would laugh at this. He hears a song, and you appear in his mind like a reflex. He experiences something, and his brain automatically reaches for you. That's not strategy. That's not game. That's proof. But here's the key most women miss. It's not about the frequency. It's about the intention. A man who thinks about you all day doesn't need to text you every hour. In fact, some men who are deeply into you will hold back because they don't want to seem too eager, or they're trying to stay in control, or they simply grew up emotionally reserved. But when he does reach out, you can feel that it's coming from real mental presence. There's a warmth to it, a softness, you were with me even when you weren't here energy. And the third sign is one of the most revealing. He references the future with you already in it. Not in a dramatic, I want to marry you way. Not in a rushed promise. Not in fantasy. But in small, natural, specific ways. He'll say things like, when we go there, next time we should try that. I was thinking we could. And what he's really saying underneath it is this. I've already pictured you in my tomorrow. I've already mentally placed you into experiences I haven't even lived yet. That happens when you're on his mind consistently. Because the future is where the mind goes when it's attached. He's not just reacting to you in the present. He's imagining, anticipating, building. And this is where a lot of women accidentally downplay something huge. They'll brush it off like it's nothing, like it's just talk. But pay attention to whether he actually follows through with those future references. Because a man who genuinely thinks about you all day doesn't just imagine the future. He moves toward it. Which brings us to the fourth sign. He shows up even when it isn't convenient. When a man is thinking about you constantly, the desire to connect outweighs small inconveniences. He'll adjust his schedule. He'll find a way. He'll make time even when his day is packed. Not because you demanded it, but because being around you is something he has been looking forward to. And when he finally gets the chance to see you, the opportunity feels valuable to him. This is the difference between a man who likes you and a man who prioritizes you. A man who likes you might see you if the timing works. A man who thinks about you all day will create timing. He'll move things around. He'll protect the moment. He'll treat time with you like it matters. And you can feel it because his energy is different. He doesn't act like you're something he can catch later. He acts like you're something he doesn't want to miss. Now here's a sign that's subtle, but once you notice it, you'll never ignore it again. His presence is deeper when you're together. When a man is mentally consumed by you, he's not half there. He's not distracted. He's not performing. He's not scanning the room for something better. He's not scrolling through his phone like your background music. He's present. His eyes stay on you longer. His body turns toward you. His attention doesn't drift easily, because this is the moment his mind has been returning to all day. And with presence comes curiosity. He asks questions that actually open you up, not the boring interview questions, real questions. What do you think about this? How did that make you feel? What do you want for your life? What scares you? What makes you feel alive? And when he listens, you can tell he's not waiting for his turn to speak. He's taking you in. He's tracking you. He's learning you. Carl Jung said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." That's exactly what this feels like. When you're truly on his mind, the connection isn't just interaction. It's impact. And impact changes his attention. Now the next sign is one that many women don't expect, because it doesn't look romantic at first. He protects the connection. If someone disrespects you, he doesn't sit back like it's entertainment. If there's drama around you, he doesn't act careless. If something threatens what you have, he responds. Not always aggressively, not always with confrontation. Sometimes it's as simple as him making it clear with tone and boundaries that you're not to be played with. Because when you are constantly on someone's mind, protecting access to you becomes instinct. He doesn't want anything to contaminate the connection he values. And here's another big one. He reveals parts of himself he doesn't hand out to everyone. His fears, his past, his insecurities, his dreams, the parts of him that aren't polished. Because when a man thinks about you all day, he doesn't only want to know you, he wants you to know him. He starts imagining what it would feel like to be truly seen by you. And when the moment comes, he lets you in. That is not casual behavior. That is investment. And investment always shows up as consistency. Not perfection, but steadiness. Which brings us to one of the most important signs of all. You don't have to drag him into connection. You don't have to remind him to check in. You don't have to initiate every conversation. You don't have to wonder if you'll hear from him. Because when someone is genuinely thinking about you throughout their day, maintaining connection doesn't feel like a chore. It feels like something is missing when they don't. Now, let's be very clear. Consistency does not mean obsession. It does not mean he has to text you every morning and every night like a script. It means his effort matches his interest. It means you feel a steady flow of intention. It means you don't feel like you're surviving on breadcrumbs. And if he's showing these signs, you're not just someone he likes. You're someone who has taken up residence in his mind. That's how you know. Not from what he promises, from what he proves. And now we need to go deeper, because the question becomes this. Why? Why do some women stay on a man's mind all day, while others fade the moment they leave the room? Because it's not only about beauty. It's not about having the perfect body. It's not even about being the nicest. There's something psychological happening under the surface. And once you understand it, you'll stop trying to earn someone's attention and start embodying the kind of presence that naturally becomes unforgettable. So, let's talk about what really locks you into a man's mind and what makes him return to you, even when life is pulling him in 10 different directions. So, why is it that some women stay on a man's mind all day, while others barely register once the moment ends? Here's the truth most people never explain clearly. It has very little to do with looks alone. Physical attraction might open the door, but it does not keep you living in someone's thoughts. What keeps you there is the emotional experience you create inside him. The way he feels about himself, about life, about possibility when he's around you. Men don't become mentally attached to women who simply look good. They become attached to women who do something to their inner world. When a woman genuinely stays on a man's mind, it's because being with her activates something deeper than desire. He feels more alive, more understood, more challenged, more grounded. Or sometimes more unsettled, in a way that wakes him up. You become a mirror that reflects parts of him he doesn't access with everyone. And that's powerful, because men are not chasing women, they're chasing states of being. How they feel in your presence becomes the association. And once that association is formed, his mind keeps returning to you without effort. This is why two women can say the same words, do the same things, look equally attractive, and only one of them leaves a lasting imprint. One creates an emotional experience, the other doesn't. Carl Jung said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own soul." When a woman brings a man closer to his inner world, even unintentionally, she becomes unforgettable because she touches the place most people avoid. Now, here's where this gets misunderstood. Women often think they need to do more to stay on a man's mind. Be more available, more accommodating, more agreeable, more present. But that usually has the opposite effect. Because what keeps someone thinking about you isn't constant access. It's meaningful presence paired with space. A woman who stays on a man's mind is present when she's there and complete when she's not. She doesn't linger energetically. She doesn't chase. She doesn't over-explain. She doesn't collapse her life to fit into his. She leaves an impression, and then she leaves. That space is where the thinking happens. That space is where curiosity grows. That space is where he feels her absence and realizes it matters. This isn't a tactic. It's a natural outcome of being internally full instead of externally focused. The women who stay on men's minds have something in common. They are rooted in themselves. They are not performing for attention. They are not trying to be chosen. They are not bending their identity to fit someone else's expectations. They show up as whole people. They have opinions, boundaries, rhythm, direction, a life that doesn't pause when a man enters it. And paradoxically, that's what makes a man want to enter it. Because when a woman is centered in herself, she becomes a place of stability and intrigue at the same time. He can feel her warmth, but he can't fully predict her. He can sense her interest, but he knows she doesn't need him to survive. That balance is magnetic, and it's the opposite of desperation. Another key reason a woman stays on a man's mind is emotional pacing. She doesn't dump her entire story at once. She doesn't overshare in an attempt to bond faster. She allows intimacy to unfold naturally, layer by layer, moment by moment. This creates depth, and depth creates return thoughts because there's more to explore, more to understand, more to discover. When everything is revealed too quickly, the mind has nothing to revisit. But when there's depth that unfolds over time, the mind stays engaged. It circles back. It reflects. It wonders. Not because she's withholding, because she's allowing connection to grow organically. Now, let's talk about a critical distinction that changes everything. A man thinks about a woman all day, not when she needs him, but when she chooses him. Need creates pressure. Choice creates value. When a woman clearly values a man, enjoys him, appreciates him, but does not depend on his validation to feel whole. It creates a dynamic that feels rewarding, not burdensome. He doesn't feel trapped. He feels invited, and invitations are remembered. This is where many women accidentally push men out of their minds by trying too hard to stay in them. Constant initiation, constant availability, always responding instantly, dropping plans to accommodate him, over-explaining feelings, trying to secure reassurance. All of that communicates one thing subconsciously. There is no risk of losing me. And without risk, there is no urgency. Without urgency, the tension fades. Not because he doesn't like you, but because the mind doesn't cling to what feels guaranteed. This is not about playing hard to get. It's about being grounded enough not to abandon yourself for attention. Men don't think all day about women who make everything easy. They also don't think all day about women who make everything difficult. They think about women who make things real, present but not clingy, warm but not self-sacrificing, open but not boundaryless, interested but not desperate. That balance is rare, and rarity is what the mind returns to. Another deep factor that keeps you on a man's mind is standards. Not rules, not demands, standards. When a woman knows what she will and will not accept, and she lives from that place quietly, something powerful happens. She generates respect. And respect mixed with attraction is what creates obsession of the healthy kind. Because now, being with her is not just pleasurable. It's meaningful. He knows he can't take her for granted. He knows access to her is earned through consistency. He knows sloppy behavior won't slide, and that awareness stays with him. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." When a man senses a woman who is conscious of herself, her worth, and her boundaries, it disrupts his unconscious patterns. And disruption creates attention. Now, let's address what doesn't keep you on his mind. Over-accommodating, people-pleasing, always saying yes, always initiating, always being available. Those behaviors feel safe, but safety without depth becomes forgettable. Comfort alone does not create preoccupation. It creates familiarity. And familiarity without challenge or mystery does not generate lasting mental presence. When someone knows they can have your attention anytime, with zero effort, there's nothing to anticipate, nothing to imagine, nothing to miss. And the mind doesn't linger where there's no tension. Healthy tension is what keeps you alive in someone's thoughts. Not anxiety, not manipulation, but polarity. Two grounded individuals choosing each other without losing themselves. And here's the deepest layer of all. A woman stays on a man's mind when she represents alignment. When being with her feels aligned with who he wants to become, not just who he is now, but who he is moving toward. She doesn't need to push him. Her presence does the work. He thinks about her because she reflects possibility, growth, a better version of himself, a calmer version, a more authentic version. That's why he keeps returning to her mentally. Not because she chased, but because she resonated. So ask yourself this: are you trying to be thought about? Or are you being someone whose presence naturally leaves a mark? Because the women who stay on men's minds all day are not sitting around waiting to be remembered. They are living. They are expanding. They are grounded. And that energy lingers. And now there's something equally important to understand. Because sometimes a man acts interested. He flirts. He engages. He shows up in the moment. But when you're gone, you disappear from his mental world. And if you don't know how to recognize that, you'll invest deeply in someone who was never mentally there. So, let's get honest about the signs that you're not actually on his mind, even when it looks like you might be. Because knowing the difference will save you time, energy, and emotional pain. And once you see it clearly, you won't confuse attention with intention ever again. Let's get brutally honest about something that most people don't want to admit. Sometimes a man acts interested. He says all the right things. He gives you moments that feel real. But when you're not around, you barely exist in his mental world. And if you don't know how to read that difference, you'll end up giving your heart to someone who is only borrowing your time. The first and clearest indicator that you're not on his mind is inconsistency. One day he's fully present, texting you, complimenting you, showing affection. The next he's cold, distant, unreachable. Then he reappears like nothing happened, expecting the same warmth from you as before. This kind of hot and cold rhythm isn't passion. It's disinterest wearing a mask. When someone genuinely thinks about you all day, you don't have to chase stability. You feel it. They're steady, not perfect, but steady. If he can go days without talking to you, without checking in. And when he finally returns, he offers no explanation, no curiosity, no accountability. Then you already have your answer. You're not living rent-free in his mind. You're just passing through his convenience. The next sign is timing. He only reaches out late at night or when it suits him. If your phone lights up after 10 p.m., but never at 10 a.m., that's not connection. That's habit. You're the when nothing else is going on option. If a man's thoughts of you only appear when his world gets quiet, that means you're a filler, not a focus. A man who truly thinks about you doesn't time his effort around boredom. He makes space for you because you already occupy space in his day. If you're the afterthought between distractions, you're not the one his mind is anchored to. Now here's another powerful signal. He never goes deeper. Your conversations stay on the surface. Small talk, flirty comments, vague plans. He's not curious about your inner world. He doesn't ask how you feel, what moves you, what scares you, what dreams you hold quietly in your chest. When a man thinks about you all day, curiosity becomes automatic. He wants to know you, not just have you near him. But when he doesn't ask, when he never remembers what you shared, when he talks at you instead of with you, that's not connection. That's contact. There's a difference. Another sign, no concrete plans. He says, "We should hang out sometime. We'll figure something out soon. Let's do something next week," but nothing ever happens. When a man truly thinks about you, vague ideas become real plans. Because thought leads to action. He finds a day, a time, a way, because he wants to. If you're stuck in an endless cycle of someday, it means you're not in his now. Here's something most women overlook: integration. If he's thinking about you constantly, you'll feel him trying to include you in his real world. You'll meet his friends. He'll mention you in conversations. He'll want to blend you into the rhythm of his life. But if months go by and you remain separate, if his people don't know you exist, if his stories never include your name, then he's compartmentalized you. You're not in his world because you're not in his thoughts. And here's a big one: emotional dismissal. When you express what bothers you or what you need, and he makes you feel dramatic or too much, you're seeing his emotional investment clearly. When a man truly thinks about you, your emotions matter to him. They affect him. He might not always know how to fix things, but he cares. If he doesn't care, if your feelings are met with silence or mockery, you're not living in his head. You're just another moment passing through his ego. Now pay attention to this. If you stop initiating, stop texting, stop trying, what happens? Does he notice? Does he check in? Does he step up? Or does the silence stay silent? Because if you can disappear and he doesn't even blink, then your presence never mattered as much as you hoped. Men who think about you all day feel your absence. Even if they don't say it, you'll sense. They'll circle back. They'll show up. they'll reach out. Not because you reminded them, but because the thought of losing your energy feels wrong. And that brings us to something deeper. How you feel when you're with him. The mind can lie, words can mislead, but your emotional body knows the truth. If you constantly feel anxious, unsure, or like you're the one keeping the connection alive, that's not love. That's imbalance. When a man thinks about you all day, you feel it without having to ask. You feel safe. You feel seen. You feel steady. Confusion is not a sign of love. It's a sign of mixed signals. Carl Jung once said, "You meet your destiny on the road you take to avoid it." Many women keep chasing proof of love from men who are not mentally present, hoping that effort will create attention. But that chase only delays the inevitable. The moment you realize your love can't substitute for his interest. If you recognize these patterns, the inconsistency, the late-night messages, the shallow conversations, the absence when you stop trying, then you already have clarity. It's not that you're not enough. It's that his thoughts simply don't live where your heart does. And that realization, as painful as it is freedom. Because once you accept that you're not on his mind, you stop fighting to rent space that was never yours. You take your energy back. You redirect it. You invest it into something that actually multiplies yourself. That's where everything begins to shift. So what do you do now? You stop convincing. You stop performing. You stop hoping that your consistency will awaken his clarity. Instead, you pull back your power. Not to punish him, but to realign with reality. Because here's what always happens next. When you reclaim your focus, one of two things occurs. He either steps forward because he feels your absence, or he drifts away because he never valued your presence. Both outcomes serve you. The first gives you proof. The second gives you peace. Either way, you win. And once you shift from wanting to be thought about to wanting to think clearly about yourself, something remarkable happens. Your energy changes. Your silence starts speaking louder than your words ever did. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Now is your moment to make it conscious, to see what's real, to step out of the loop, to stop calling emotional uncertainty love. Because love that lives in someone's mind doesn't keep you guessing. It's consistent. It's intentional. It shows up. So if the signs aren't there, let them go. Because the space you clear today creates the room for someone whose mind, heart, and actions all speak the same language. And that's where we go next. How to reclaim your worth, refocus your energy, and become the kind of woman who no longer waits to be thought about, because she's too busy living a life worth remembering. So now we arrive at the most important shift of all. Because once you see clearly whether you're on his mind or not, the question stops being, how do I get him to think about me? And it becomes, what do I do with this truth? This is where your power actually begins. If you've realized that you haven't been on his mind the way you hoped, the instinct is often to panic, to try harder, to explain yourself better, to show more love, to give more access, to prove your value. But here's the hard truth that will save you years of emotional exhaustion. A man who isn't thinking about you all day will not suddenly start because you give more. Mental and emotional investment does not respond to pressure. It responds to resonance. You cannot convince someone to carry you in their thoughts. Either you live there naturally or you don't. And if you don't, that is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of alignment. So the first thing you do is this. You accept reality as it is, not as you wish it were. Acceptance is not weakness, it is clarity, and clarity is power. When you stop arguing with what is, You stop bleeding energy into situations that cannot feed you back. You stop negotiating for attention. You stop hoping that potential will turn into presence. You stop confusing emotional hunger with love. And once you accept where you stand, your next move becomes obvious. You pull your energy back, not to play games, not to punish, not to manipulate him into missing you, but to rebalance yourself. If he's not thinking about you when you're not around, then you need to stop centering him in your inner world as well. Stop being the one who always initiates. Stop filling silence with effort. Stop overfunctioning in a dynamic that isn't meeting you halfway. And here's the part most people don't understand. Pulling back is not about disappearing. It's about becoming still enough to see the truth. Because when you stop carrying the connection on your back, one of two things always happens. Either he feels the absence and steps forward with real effort, or he doesn't notice at all. Both outcomes are gifts. One gives you confirmation, the other gives you closure. And closure is far more valuable than confusion. Now, let's talk about where your focus needs to go next. Because this is where real transformation happens. You redirect your attention back to yourself. When you spend your days wondering whether someone is thinking about you, you are outsourcing your self-worth to someone else's mind. And that is exhausting. Take that energy back. Put it into your life, your goals, your growth, your body, your creativity, your friendships, your peace. When you become deeply engaged with your own world, something shifts. You stop scanning for validation. You stop waiting for proof. You stop needing reassurance to feel grounded. And that internal stability is magnetic. Not because you're trying to attract, but because you're no longer chasing. The women who stay on men's minds all day are not the ones sitting around hoping to be remembered. They are the ones building lives that feel alive to live. They are absorbed in their own direction. They are anchored in their own worth. They are emotionally available, but not emotionally dependent. And when a man encounters a woman like that, she doesn't just enter his life. She disrupts his pattern, because now attention has to be earned. Now presence has value. Now access feels meaningful. Another critical shift is raising your standards, quietly, internally, and without apology. Standards are not ultimatums. They are not threats. They are not rules you announce. They are the behavior you no longer tolerate. Decide what consistency looks like to you. Decide what effort feels respectful. Decide what emotional availability means for you. And once you decide, live by it. When you stop accepting breadcrumbs, you stop attracting birds who only bring crumbs. You don't need to explain your standards to the wrong people. They will reveal themselves quickly by their inability to meet them. And here's something that will change how you date forever. Real interest shows up early. You do not need months to figure out whether a man is mentally invested. Within the first few weeks, you can see consistency, curiosity, effort, and presence. If it's confusing early, it doesn't magically become clear later. If it's inconsistent at the beginning, it rarely stabilizes over time. Pay attention early. It saves you later. And finally, the most powerful shift of all. Make peace with walking away. The moment you are genuinely okay with losing anyone who cannot meet you with equal investment, your energy changes completely. You stop clinging, you stop negotiating, you stop shrinking, and that self-respect is felt immediately. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." When you stop bending yourself to be thought about and start becoming who you truly are, you naturally attract people who think about you without effort, because now you're not chasing attention. You're embodying value. So here's the final truth I want you to walk away with. You deserve someone who doesn't just think about you when it's convenient. You deserve someone who carries you in their mind throughout their day. Someone who sees something and immediately thinks of you. Someone who makes plans with you included. Someone whose actions are so consistent that you never have to ask where you stand. And the moment you stop accepting anything less, you become unavailable to confusion. You stop chasing clarity. You start recognizing investment. So take an honest look at your current situation. Are his actions showing that you're on his mind? Or are you holding on to hope based on potential? If the signs aren't there, pull back and let reality speak. Stop doing all the emotional heavy lifting. Let him show you clearly whether you matter in his world. And while that unfolds, invest in yourself so deeply that being thought about becomes less important than how grounded you feel in your own life. Because the right man won't make you wonder. He'll make it obvious. And when you experience that kind of clarity, you'll realize just how much time you once spent trying to decode mixed signals from people who were never truly invested. You are not meant to be an afterthought. You are meant to be the thought that lingers. And the moment you choose yourself fully, you step into the kind of love where that is no longer a question. It's a standard. That's the shift. That's the power. And that's exactly what you deserve. And now everything comes together. Because after all the signs, all the psychology, all the clarity, there's one final truth that matters more than anything else. Being on someone's mind is not the goal. Being at peace with yourself is. When you make that shift, everything about the way you experience love changes. You stop measuring your worth by how often someone reaches out. You stop scanning for proof that you matter. You stop reading between lines that were never meant for you. And in that stillness, something powerful happens. You start choosing instead of waiting. You stop asking, "Am I on his mind?" And you start asking, "Does this connection honor me?" Because here's what no one tells you clearly enough. When you are truly valued, you don't need to decode behavior. You don't need to guess. You don't need to explain why consistency matters to you. The right person already understands that. A man who genuinely thinks about you all day does not leave you emotionally confused. He doesn't disappear and reappear without care. He doesn't make you feel like you're asking for too much when you ask for basic effort. His actions speak before his words ever need to. And when you experience that kind of clarity once, you can never unsee the difference. You realize how heavy it felt to carry uncertainty. You realize how much energy you spent hoping instead of receiving. You realize how often you abandoned your intuition to hold on to potential. That awareness is not something to regret. It's something to graduate from, because now you know. You know that attention without intention is empty. You know that chemistry without consistency is chaos. You know that attraction without respect leads to self-betrayal. And most importantly, you know that your time, your heart, and your energy are not meant to be auditioned for someone who isn't fully present. So from this point forward, the standard changes. You stop explaining your needs to people who aren't listening. You stop staying in dynamics that require you to shrink. You stop mistaking anxiety for passion. And you stop chasing the feeling of being chosen, because you finally choose yourself first. And here's the beautiful irony of it all. When you become deeply rooted in your own life, when your sense of worth no longer depends on being thought about, you naturally become unforgettable. Not because you're trying, but because you're aligned. You walk differently. You speak differently. You respond differently. You don't rush. You don't cling. You don't overextend. And that grounded energy is exactly what makes the right people lean in. Because now, being with you feels like an addition, not an obligation. Now your presence feels earned, not guaranteed. Now your absence is felt, not ignored. And the men who are capable of real connection don't just notice that. They respond to it. They think about you not because they're afraid of losing you, but because life feels better with you in it. That is the only form of attention that possesses true longevity. If you take just one message away from this today, let it be this. You were never intended to spend your life convincing a man to keep you in his thoughts. You were destined to become a woman who treasures herself so profoundly that only those capable of genuine, consistent investment are permitted into your inner circle. When you operate from that level of self-worth, the anxiety over whether you are on his mind becomes entirely irrelevant. Because the right man will never leave you in a state of uncertainty. He will demonstrate his devotion through his steady consistency, his unwavering presence, and his commitment to showing up even when life becomes difficult. When you finally experience that caliber of love, you will look back and recognize a powerful truth. You didn't actually lose the people who couldn't meet your standards. You simply liberated yourself to make room for the one who can. If these words brought you a sense of peace, comment the word clarity below. I personally read every single comment, and your engagement helps this message find the women who are searching for it most. Make sure to subscribe if you are officially finished with the guessing games, the chasing, and the overthinking, and you are ready to master male psychology, emotional dynamics, and the laws of authentic attraction. Share this video with a woman who is currently trapped in the fog of mixed signals, because one moment of clarity can prevent years of emotional suffering.